Hello, and thank you for being here today as we discuss bird flu and global health and sustainable strategies for Calmine foods. Everything we do before a pandemic will seem alarmist. Everything we do after the pandemic will seem inadequate. This is a quote by Michael Levitt, a secretary in White House, and we were influenced and inspired by this quote as we made the presentation. Hi, I'm Vanshika.
Hello, I'm Andrew Tolman.
Chị Nguyễn.
I'm Minnie.
And I'm Julie.
And we are the Sustainable Innovation Consultants. We are so excited to welcome Calmain management team today. In our research for today, for bird flu and global health, we identified these stakeholders and we noticed three to be primary. Calmain employees and shareholders, animals and animal welfare organizations, and consumers and public health. Concerning bird flu, here is our ethical dilemma for today. How should Calmain Foods respond to the bird flu crisis while balancing the need for food security, animal welfare, and its commitment to all stakeholders?
And why is it an ethical question? Because the highly pathogenic avian influenza H5N1 has caused unprecedented losses in the poultry industry. As you can see, over 138.7 million birds have been killed due to the virus, and leading to a purchase limit on eggs, and the wholesale price keep rising. Not only that, the virus continues to spread despite heavy investment in biosecurity measures and the culling of flocks. So now that we have established the severity of bird flu, let's talk about different areas and their further implications. Bird flu addresses risks for food security, animal welfare, and economic viability. And lastly, sustainability. As we realize that bird flu has impact both food source and public health, which contradicts to SDG number 2 and SDG number 3. And we are here with a goal to end hunger, ensure food security, improve nutrition, and promote sustainable agriculture, as well as ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. And Calmain adapts with these sustainability goals in your mission statement. Your mission statement states that Calmain is the most sustainable, reliable, and consistent egg producer, and demonstrate a culture of sustainability and create values for shareholder and every team members. And here's our agenda for our presentation today. First, we will go through how to grow a flock. Then we will learn about Calmain bird flu, and we will dive into market analysis and learn from the past case studies. Then we will learn about ethical, legal, and financial consideration. And lastly, we will step into actionable steps. So first, let's go through prepare a shelter to grow the flock. These are our preliminary recommendations. We want to tie biosecurity by flock, fortify the perimeter, community collaboration, proactive containment, avoiding mass killing, and lastly, pilot vaccination program. Now I will hand it to Minnie for Calmain and bird flu.
Let's go through Calmain. About Calmain, it is known as the largest producer and distributor of fresh-shell eggs in the United States, and it was founded by Fred Roger Adams in 1957, headquartered in Richland, Mississippi. The integrated operations consist of hatching chicks, producing and distributing shell eggs. We understand this is the culture of sustainability, and we should focus on sustainable producer, reliable supplier, and consistent, high-quality fresh shell eggs. Next slide, please. The company has demonstrated a long history of impressive profitable growth and operational excellence. In 1996, Kamin Food became a public company trading on National Association of Security Dealers automatic quotation under ticker KARM, and it reached a milestone of selling over 1 billion dozen eggs for the first time in 2014. Next slide. So it is the leading company for the egg production. The percentage of dozen produced to sold was 92.3% of total shell eggs in 2023, with 91% of such production come from company-owned facilities and 8.2% from contract producer. A small percentage shell eggs sold are purchased from outside producers. Next slide. Kamin sell most of their eggs in southwestern, southeastern, midwestern, and mid-Atlantic region of the US. Most of its production goes to grocery stores. Next slide. Next slide. As you can see, Kamin revenue peaked in 2022 and 2023, mainly due to the bird flu outbreak. The disease reduced the overall supply of eggs in the market, causing price to spike. Yeah, next slide. So what is the effect of bird flu to Kamin business? Kamin Food experienced a confirmed case of highly pathogenic avian influenza at its Texas facility in Partner County, leading to a temporary halt in production. The outbreak has resulted in the loss of nearly 1.6 million laying hens and above 300,000 pullets, approximately 3.6% of company total flock. It seems like a small number, but the economic and operational consequences are substantial. Production at the entire facility had to stop to contain the outbreak. Next slide.
All right, so let's talk about bird flu. The virus is highly contagious and has shown to rapidly evolve with new characteristics, making it hard to combat it in its growing number of variants. Its primary method of transmission is through direct contact, be it through droppings, contaminated surfaces, and equipment. As you see, it has almost a 100% mortality rate in poultry. As mentioned previously, its variants are now capable of infecting outside of poultry, making this a troubling issue, as more than 900 cows have already been confirmed infected with human infections, albeit less. Also a concern, though. Severe illness in humans has intensified surveillance efforts, which emphasizes the concern and the importance of this issue. As you can see on the screen, severity has already been shown, not only in the US, but outside of it, as a 2-year-old girl recently died from eating raw chicken that was infected with bird flu. So currently, human-to-human contact isn't a method of transmission yet. It mostly affects those working with animals, which we have taken into account in our recommendations. The human race has been fighting viruses effectively with vaccines, as is shown with the current most recent bird flu vaccines for birds, with it having a success rate hovering around 85% on average. Much like COVID, birds still transmit despite being vaccinated, and this also raises concerns about strains mutating past the defense of vaccines. Now, currently, the USDA has given conditional approval for a vaccine. However, many details are still up in the air with respect to its deployment and also vaccinating flocks and its implications with trade. Currently, the following assistance has been offered by the government to deal with this outbreak. Let's talk about how we can utilize these funds. Our single most important recommendation is upgrading of biosecurity measures. Vaccines are a potential option. However, we feel a more concrete and proven to be successful measure would be to focus on biosecurity as it works against all viruses and strains. While costs of implementing may seem high, the government is providing 75% financial assistance to biosecurity upgrades and free consultations. So let's lean into that. Other options are, of course, culling of flocks, which is undesirable both financially and ethically, adding greater importance to biosecurity. Speaking of financials, I'll hand it over to Chi to speak on the market.
Now we'll bring our focus to an overview of the egg industry and the culling methods being used in the egg industry. So, talking about eggs, we realized and discovered that they are the most affordable sources of protein in American households with unlikely substitutes. For example, in 2024, a person was estimated to have consumed 284 portable eggs, according to Statista. This brings attention to the fact that how valuable cow-main's product is in the context of food security and how much the security is being hampered by the bird flu due to culling of their producers. Last year, the egg and chicken industries saw a slight decline in production and bird numbers due to bird flu. Here we can see the egg production decrease around 2% from 2023, and the egg-laying hens decreased about 1%. Because of the shortage here, the overall value of chickens actually went up around 8% compared to 2023. Speaking of here, these are the number of egg-laying hens from the top egg producers in 2024. While talking about competitors and the industry, we have to keep in mind the safety of those birds. So the current egg producers are strictly following biosecurity measures from USDA, which are disinfect facilities and equipment, avoiding human interaction and vehicles from animal areas, and wear personal protective equipment. As the industry tries its best to protect the birds from threats like bird flu, yet unfortunately, when the bird is infected with HPAI, it causes harm to the whole flock. The current widely known resolutions to this in the US are these culling methods. Water-based foam is considered to be the most humane way, as the foam cuts off air supplies and causing quick suffocation. The other two would be gas stunning, which they use carbon dioxide, argon, or nitrogen. Birds are placed in a sealed chamber and then causing birds unconsciousness and death when gas is released. The most inhumane way in all the three ways is the ventilation shutdown. Foam or the sealants are used to seal off poultry housing ventilation fans, so birds die as the oxygen levels drop. So you might want to consider these culling methods, especially the water-based foam, because dying by bird flu is not a human option, but the human culling option is. Now we will look at the past cases to learn and provide these recommendations. So these are the two case studies we incorporated as a warning to what bird flu can become and threaten zero hunger and global health and well-being. As we can see here, these are the two serious pandemics that have happened in the past, and the casualties are enormous. You can see in SARS-CoV-2, there's more than 6.8 million deaths, and the global GDP shrunk by 3.5 in 2020. For mad cow, although the deaths are a little less, the UK also lost 3.5 billion pounds in the economic damage from exporting bans and culling. So while in the process of coming up with our detailed recommendations, we discovered that Brazil had it as a strong example of eradicating bird flu in 2023. The main reason we chose Brazil as a credibly proven model because they are recognized as the HPAI disease-free by the World Organization of Animal Health. Some key highlights of the measures they took are strong surveillance and rapid response protocols, vertical integration, and maintaining export status during global outbreaks. Next, I'll pass on to Jolie to talk about the ethical considerations.
So now we learned about the problems going on with bird flu. So the question is, how should cowmen adapt and approach it ethically? So first, let's go back to your values. We know that Calmain is a sustainable, reliable, and consistent egg producer. To do that, Calmain maintains to balance eco-friendly and high-qualified farming practices, and also aims to achieve ethical animal welfare as well as maintaining a resilient and effective supply chain to the customer. Next slide. However, bird flu has brought challenges to achieve our goal. The first problem is mad culling and animal welfare. Many people believe that culling is the most humane way to treat the infected chicken, but it may not be the most effective way. Moreover, millions of birds are culled often by methods like gassing, ventilation shutdown, suffocation, and these methods are controversial and inhumane. Not only that, many farms have overused culling to stop the virus without considering alternatives like improving biosecurity infrastructure. And this problem has led to the second problem, food security and sustainability. The uncontrolled mass culling produces tons of wasted healthy poultry. This creates food shortages and causing the rise of prices. And this strongly affects low-income families and contradicts to the effort to reduce food insecurity globally. The third challenge here is economic impact. Culling has led to a disruption in egg production, which then causes serious loss to farm and businesses, not only because they lose their sales. The recovery period after culling a flock is about 4 to 6 months. And just imagine not being able to produce for that long could lose you a lot of money. On the other hand, many businesses have used bird flu as an excuse to raise egg prices. Evident is that Calmain and other businesses have been profitable in this time. Next slide. So now we will wonder how to respond to those ethical challenges. First of all, we recommend effectively control the transmission by using digital tools to detect the infected bird. Then we will want to isolate them in a containment zone. We need then to make sure them to treat them the most humane way possible, such as inert gases. And not only that, to prevent further spread, prevention is needed. We want to invest in sanitation tools and biosecurity infrastructure. Then workers need to be vaccinated and prepared with safety practices. And we do not want only care about this bird flu outbreak. We want to prepare for the future diseases. Investing in vaccine R&D and next generation biosecurity are important to detect and cure diseases rapidly, as well as climate resilient infrastructure for the farms. And these are the mission to a future of sustainability and food security. Now I hand it to Minnie for legal consideration.
Let's go through legal consideration. First, for the food safety rules, the FDA, U.S. Food and Drug Administration, focuses on ensuring that food products, including eggs, are safe for consumption. In the case of bird flu, the FDA works with the USDA, United States Department of Agriculture, to monitor the safety of poultry products, ensuring that eggs from infected birds are not entering the food supply. For the labor laws, Calmain must pay workers fairly, follow minimum wage laws, and provide safe working conditions. These are the certifications that Calmain has currently owned. Next slide. Calmain Food and other major egg producers are under ongoing investigation. The U.S. Department of Justice is looking into whether they restrict supply to push up egg prices. In April 2020, during the COVID-19 pandemic, Texas Attorney General accused Calmain Food of price gouging. There were allegations that egg price had gone up by 300%, even though there were no major supply issues. This raised concern as people were already struggling to afford essential goods. Calmain responded by saying that price increases was driven by market force, using data from Uniberry market quote to support their claim. Then in 2025, The U.S. Department of Justice opened an investigation into possible price fixing by big egg producer, including Calming. This shows how much scrutiny and regulation large food companies face, especially when prices rise suddenly. Then the law for meat export does create some problem for vaccinated hens, but since Cayman has close to no export market, this law shouldn't bother this company. Yeah, let's get through financial assessment.
Awesome. Let's talk financials. Calmaine is in a strong financial position with record revenue growth, lower costs, and government vaccine support, meaning it's the perfect time to reinvest and secure long-term stability. As you can see, Calmaine is the industry leader, meaning it's important for us to set industry trends that will ripple throughout the industry.
Now, coming to the detailed recommendations, let's grow a healthy flock. It is a 6-factor recommendation plan for getting a healthy flock. Okay, first, the foundation. We want to maintain the current practices, controlled access, PPE for all, rigorous sanitation, and closed house production to limit exposure. With a routine health monitoring and an all in, all out system, we ensure consistent flock health and biosecurity. Next slide, please. Okay, first we're focusing on the highest risk breeding flocks, which are the where outbreaks can start and spread fast. We're proposing a tiered biosecurity model, more intense security for the top tier, higher risk flocks, no compromises at the top. We'll also increase the quarantine and testing specifically at the breeder farms. To start, we're targeting 3 key breeding facilities housing your 255,000 hens to implement and monitor these changes. Next, we want to focus on fortifying the perimeters, keeping threats out before they reach the flock. We'll install buffer zones and double-layered fencing to create strong physical barriers and use deterrent landscaping like thorny plants or visual barriers to keep wild birds from approaching. We also, and crucially, we'll separate commercial farms from our backyard poultry to cut off one of the biggest cross contamination risks. Third, we are taking a community first approach because protecting Calmaine means protecting what's around it. We'll incentivize locals to reduce or relocate backyard flocks near commercial zones. We can also provide training and financial support to help them transition smoothly, and the goal is to minimize cross contamination risks in surrounding areas and build trust through collaboration. Fourth, we take a proactive stance with containment, learning from Brazil's strategy of voluntary bird relocation near outbreak zones. Calmin can lead by having a pre-planned containment strategy in place, ready to act fast. This includes immediate isolation of affected areas, paired with daily testing to track the spread. Fifth, we want to avoid mass culling. We'll focus on early processing of potentially exposed birds before outbreaks escalate, and we'll segregate and monitor lower risk zones to prevent spread and to protect unaffected areas. Lastly, we'll enhance disposal and decontamination protocols to ensure swift, thorough, and safe removal of potential threats. We'll implement a USDA-based pilot program to test immunity in a controlled, safe environment. We'll start with pullet factories, ensuring early protection with minimal disruption to our operations at a cost of 2 to 10 cents per bird. It's a fraction of the potential cost of a full flock loss. This is a proactive step toward building a flock-wide resilience and making our flocks more robust against future outbreaks. In summary, we're building a multi-layered defense with tiered biosecurity, strong perimeter controls, and community collaboration, proactive containment, and immunity testing, all to protect Calmain from the threat of bird flu and ensure healthy, long-term health of our flocks, which is all in all a sustainable approach. Thank you. We are now open to questions.
I have you stop screen sharing, and we'll bring it back into conversation with the stakeholders. Thank you, Sustainable Innovation Consultants. I'd like to start our question with our fellow board members, our fellow stakeholders, really drilling down a little bit more and have you think about, if you will, the ethical transgression and why it's a problem. So if you could tell me, if you will, what would you say is the positive ethical value or even values that your solution advances? And any of you are free to, whether it was your section or one of the team members. What is the positive ethical value or values that you really feel your solution is advancing?
It would take like 30 seconds to confer.
You absolutely may. Yeah.
Okay, I could take that. I think the primary ethical value that we have definitely taken in consideration would be the overall benefit and overall well-being of all. Primarily, all of our three stakeholders may be our employees, our animals, and the consumers in well-being and public health. From our employees' point of view, we want to make sure that our employees, especially the farmers and poultry workers on floor, are protected, because these are the people who are directly influenced by a virus like bird flu, as well as employees who deserve a nurturing company and a inclusive company to work at. While concerning animals and bird flu, it is directly tied because we are culling birds at the end of the virus, and we want a better justice for them. We want to make sure that they don't get bird flu at all, which is why we are trying to implement a pilot vaccination program. But because we know at the same time that the virus mutates, and because of the mutation we'll have to keep coming with new vaccinations, we don't want to get trapped in that cycle, which is why we've prioritized biosecurity measures to not let the virus in. Concerning to consumers and public health, the ethics over here goes especially regarding the prices of the eggs, that especially big companies like your company Calmain, they were able to use the benefit of a price increase while the culling of the birds, because there was a decrease in the bird flock because we had to kill them because of bird flu. There was a limit and um, there was a supply limit for eggs in the market, and because of which the consumers had to pay for it. Considering all these primary stakeholders in mind, this is the reason bird flu is a ethical concern for us.
All right. Thank you for that feedback. I'll allow other stakeholders to weigh in with some other questions.
Just a question about when you were talking about the the employees, that one stakeholder group. Did you consider other types of protection besides personal protective equipment, like we call about engineering controls, in other words, that may be more cost effective and more effective than PPE? Because sometimes PPE is not always the best. You're relying on someone to wear it, and wear it correctly, and it's not comfortable oftentimes in that environment.
Thank you for the question, Mark. I would just like to confirm with our team one more time for a quick second.
Sure.
Hello, Mark. Thank you for your question. I would say that while alternatives to PPE exist, it is oftentimes emerging technologies such as AI surveillance cameras that are able to monitor the flocks and determine and focus on, the heat signatures of the flocks to potentially impact tell us more about the information, if these flocks may be infected or not. I would say those are definitely important systems which we have considered, and unfortunately we haven't found enough information on there was not enough information available for us at the time, as this is emerging technology. I would also say that at this point, once a flock is infected, it seems to be necessary for it to be culled. So that's why we put extra emphasis on preventative measures first, as it is unnecessary for a flock to be culled if we just, prevent it in the first place, which is much easier said than done. I understand that. And that's why we were interested in utilizing the significant $500 billion dollars of available funding that the government has provided to bolster our biosecurity measures.
Thank you.
I often like to play devil's advocate, and on the flip side, what if we don't take any of your considerations and recommendations? What do you think is the biggest downside if we don't move forward with these solutions?
Yeah, of course, Jason. Thank you for the question. I would say the implications of not taking bird flu extremely seriously is that it could end up as another situation as COVID. As far as I understand, COVID started primarily with animals and then it exploded into the human population. And that's something that we could see here as bird flu is extremely viral and it can spread very quickly, and virus such as this one have a high capability of mutation. And as we've seen, it's already been able to infect humans, and it's only a matter of time, we would believe, that before humans are able to infect other humans. Currently it's restricted to humans being infected through poultry or livestock. And we believe it's not only it is a significant ethical, consideration of ours for us to step up and do what's right, which we believe to be preventing another global pandemic through, this virus, which could totally potentially become a huge, threat to not only just our own business and stakeholders, but the entire world, quite frankly.
Great, thank you for that. And my colleague Ace has a question.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for the presentations. So my question regarding this Russia confirmed processes, as you know, right, we talk about HACCP and other, the food industry usually self-regulated mostly, right? They're doing quality controls based on themselves. The FDA, the USDA come from time to check. So your solutions, have you considering, with all the technologies that you're trying to put in, right? Have you considering looking back on the processes that Cal-Maine has put in, or should have put in, or wouldn't have put in, anything that can help them, kind of improve on preventive measures rather than doing culling, which is a after the fact measure.
Sorry, could you repeat that just one more time? If I'm understanding it correctly, are you asking about their past measures and then sorry, can you just repeat that one more time?
Sure. So I'm asking about processes that have been put in place so that preventively, right? These things won't happen again, or the impact is minimum, right? So technology is one thing, right? But then the processes that we are going through, Cal-Maine has to go through to to do a quality control, right? Quality checked, and also right making sure that all the livestock are well. So have you considered any process of preventive measure like that?
Definitely. I think so, right. Cal-Maine does already have many preventive measures that we deeply appreciate, and we started our final recommendations with them. Some of them would be Just naming a few would be rigorous sanitation and disinfection protocols. They also have closed house production. They also have closed house production, which reduces wild bird exposure. They have routine flock health monitoring, and they have an all-in, all-out flock management system. And these are basically the measures that they're taking so far, and we're recommending to keep doing that in order to as a preventive measure against bird flu
All
before.
right.
Yeah, thank
Sounds
you.
good. All right. Thank you.
Any final questions from my stakeholders? I think that was quite comprehensive, and we can now shift into what I said is we get to pull our hats off. Now it's kind of that take that deep breath, relax, and know that now we're kind of shifting into the Q&A, a little bit more conversational time of the presentation. So I'll start things off with, I learned a lot. I can tell you did a lot of research, and I appreciated any presentation having and digesting all of those data points, those data nuggets. My recommendation would be to always kind of include a little footer in the presentation deck that has that source so that you know that either it helps you as the presenter to jog your mind of, oh, that's right, that's Pew, I'm just throwing it out there, Pew Research Center data point, or that's from Institute of Health, or et cetera, but you have that in the crawler so that you kind of know where you can go to. But I appreciated that there was even that timeline early in the deck. A lot of times as we're digesting content, we want to see where things were, where they've gone, and where we land in 2025. So I very much appreciated the timeline incorporation there. I would recommend some consistency in the numerical values that you shared. So when I saw, well, it still was a big dollar amount, 3.7 billion. Keep in mind who your audience stakeholders are who are receiving the information. So just roughly translate that into like, okay, we're a US audience. No, that the 4.7 billion has a little bit more impact in dollars. So just as you're sharing financials, that helps to kind of build a little cohesive thread there. But overall, learned a lot from the presentation, and well done, team.
Thank you.
I thought it was pretty good. I thought, coming from an environmental health standpoint, this is a really tough issue. And I think that one of the theories I was looking at is your risk communication. In other words, one of the things you want to do is if you're trying to get people to change and make some changes, you have to sort of portray the risk in such a way that people can, number one, understand it and have a sense of impact. And I think you did a good job as far as that goes, because it was well laid out, not only financial risk, but regulatory risk, as well as health risk. All three are key in this particular area. So you did a good job. Well done.
I have a question from our colleague Lynn. Were you able to evaluate effectiveness at biosecurity measures at any of our competitors? And for visibility, I'll drop that into kind of the chat. You can
Yes.
read her question.
Thank you for the question, Lynn. We had not directly looked into competitors. We had rather looked into industry trends, and also looked like across the world to see what other places are doing, draw inspiration from others. There was an example in Brazil where they have barely any instances of bird flu, and it has been because of their biosecurity recommendations. And that's why we believe partially so firmly in our method, as it's not necessarily a question of if it works, because it's been quite frankly tested in Brazil with their success, as they have barely any cases of bird flu and having to cull barely any flocks. And thus we found that biosecurity updates and intensifying biosecurity is a significantly is a significant step we could take to mitigate both this virus and future viruses. So that is how we came to our recommendation. Does that answer the question? Hello, Jason. I noticed you dipped out there for a second. Would you like me to repeat the answer?
Yeah, if you would, please. Sorry. Tech issues around. I just got zapped out.
Of course. So just to repeat the question one more time, as I understood it. The question is, how have we looked into other competitors and their practices. To which I said that we looked at the industry as a whole, and then we also looked outside the industry to see where, outside of the United States industry, to see what the current trends are in biosecurity. And we we believe greatly in our practices as in our recommendations, as Brazil, for example, has had very few, if at all, very few recommendations. Instances of bird flu in their flocks, and we were curious as to why, and it turns out that their very tight biosecurity measures are what have been causing their success. And given that, this is a recommendation that's not necessarily easy to prove, we decided, it's easy to say, but how can you know its effectiveness? And that's why we decided to actually go with it, because we already saw that in Brazil it had already been effective. And because of that effectiveness in Brazil, we decided that, this is an effective measure that can be done, and also is cost-wise permissible with the addition of the government's funding to upgrade to provide support in this endeavor.
And more conversationally, remembering we still have our judges' hats off, and your students were judges. Any questions you have for us? Any other feedback that you think would help you as you iterate and move forward in the competition?
Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Do the judges have any comments or recommendations on how we incorporated the idea of ethics and sustainability to inside our presentation, and if there are any ways to improve them for the further?
I think as much as remembering that this is very much, well, this is a business ethics. Ethics really is leading a lot of the dialogue and is top of mind for the judges as we grade and assess the scores. But really, how you articulated back our very first question here of that positive ethical value or values that the solution advances, as much as you even have the one slide that just says that. I think that really, it drills down, it funnels down, and it brings our attention back to really what the core of your message is as we receive this information from you.
Thank you.
So I would say, take care of your slides a little bit, right? I'm echoing what Jason said. So some of your slides, Count Main, have missing an E on the word main on it, which, it's okay, but just gotta take care of that. With regards to ethics, right, you got to think about this in a little bit more conventionally, right? Meaning that, these days, right, we are on the verge of getting the FDA, right, the USDA, all of the agencies that's supposed to keep us safe, kind of dismantle. So I'm not particular, saying that, you need to put it on your slide, but think about that in the back of your head, say, well, if you go ahead with this competition, right, there's going to be conversations, there's going to be discussions, there's going to be some questions regarding that, right? Know how to answer them, right? Know how to tackle them, so that you feel like this is a conventional exercise, right? And then you will be able to link it, right, with the current event and how, right, it's getting more impactful.
Yes, definitely. Thank you.
Great feedback, Ace. Well, thank you, Mark, Ace, Lynn. Appreciate your contributions, and student team, thanks for spending so much time preparing and participating in the competition. That's all the questions we have for you. So we wish you great luck.